My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content. Folks, welcome back. Today we got a special treat zooming in from just outside of San Francisco, California. We have a very vertically integrated real estate entrepreneur, Brian Baniqued, and he does a lot of stuff. He's got a brokerage. He's an active investor himself in commercial real estate. He helps with financing, and he even's gotten into movie production. So, Brian, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for welcoming me in. A great introduction for me.
Yeah. So, Brian, we were talking a little bit off camera. You do a lot of different things. So, all the way from having a brokerage, helping people buy and sell commercial properties, property management company, your own syndication business. I believe you're also in construction, starting to do, ground up construction stuff. How did you get all of this started, and how long have you been doing this for?
So great question, Dave. So I've actually been doing this for 34 years. I started back in 1991, and I got my real estate license before I graduated high school. And I started selling and closing single family houses in my senior year of high school to save up for college. And so like from 18 to 23, I was going through college and acting as a real estate agent, saving up my commissions, paying for my tuition. Yeah. It was always feast and famine, especially during those 90s when the interest rates were like 10.5%. And so I got really good at understanding income properties, right? So I bought my first fourplex because I could live in one unit and rent out the other three, and I'd have cash flow. And by the time I actually got my biology degree, and then I worked for a stint in the laboratory doing recombinant DNA, found that to be extremely boring because I was like so much better and made a whole lot more money in real estate. So yeah. I started my own real estate brokerage in 1998, and it had a primary emphasis on multifamily, right? So people would come into my office, they'd say, I want to buy a house. I go, why don't you buy a fourplex first? We could do it with 3.5% down. And then you could live in one unit for like 3 to 6 months. As you're saving up, I could get you into a house with 5% down. And then when you move out, you'll have like $500 to $600 of cash flow from that property, and it'll help pay your mortgage, right? So this was my modus operandi under the brokerage for a long time, in 1998 to like 2010. And so I'd sell like 3 properties to one client in 1 year. And then I would, because I'd sell them 2 fourplexes in a house, yeah. And I would get them into understanding how a 1031 exchange works, right? So I would say, hey, hold on to your fourplexes, don't get too attached to it. You could, we'll sell that in 2 or 3 years, because as we raise those rents 5 to 10% annually, it's going to incrementally increase the value of that 4-unit building a lot. And then when we sell it, we'll 1031 exchange it, tax-free or tax deferred, into go from a 4 into an 8 unit, or an 8 into a 16. And so, when I started the brokerage, I was 25 years old, and I actually brought on my first 8 real estate agents were my past clients or my current clients, because I'd sold them a fourplex, and then a house, and then a fourplex. I've had 8 units, then I'd sell them and move them into a 16 unit or whatnot. And so a lot of them, they ended up either retiring from their job early, and they got their real estate license, and then they came to work with me way back in 1998. And, I would save up my commissions and do the same thing, because I would practice what I preached. And I'd go out and I'd buy fourplexes. And I bought my first 5 4-units in 1 year, held on to it for about a year and a half. And then I sold all of my 5 fourplexes, and I 1030 and exchanged them into a 60, an 86 unit, a 38, a 20, and then this office complex that I'm talking to you from. And that was all between like 2000 and 2002. And so it cemented me as into a good position where, I have a business that just sells. So I'm finding my own deals, and it's not just selling a single family house, even though we would do that. It was mainly like creating cash flow and I would just use the same modus operandi that I was using on myself with my clients. So this set this great platform up for me where I had to become very, very attuned with how tax structures work. Because for me, I was making a bunch of money from real estate sales. So I had a huge taxable income, especially in California, like it is no
Yeah.
joke when they say we are taxed to death here. And so understanding real estate gave me a unique position to shelter a lot of my income because with real estate, you get depreciation. And when you're in the business, you can accelerate the depreciation. So for those in the audience that might not understand that, without going into too much detail, because I could ramble on for hours.
Mm.
Long story short, you're making 100 grand on a building, you accelerate the depreciation on that building annually, and you're losing on paper 150. So you're wiping out the taxable income of on the 100, and then you got $50,000 that you can, in some cases, depending on your income or your where the kind of job you do,
Yeah.
you can use that to offset your ordinary income. So in my case, the depreciation from my apartment buildings after I got the cash flow, I could use to offset the taxable income on my real estate commissions or mortgage commissions, things like that. And so I was able to very early on in life, probably before I was 30, establish cash flow from buildings and have multiple vertically integrated businesses. I had a real estate sales side where I was training my agents to go out and find good multifamily or cash flowing properties, right? So I
Yeah.
give them the typical denominators, cap rate, debt service, the whole nine, and help them to understand that. And then we that right around 2004, we started actually getting very, very involved in arranging the debt or being mortgage brokers. And so we would finance or help arrange the financing for our clients to buy multifamily. And then of course we set up a property management company because again, when we sell people apartment buildings, especially if as they start to grow in high net worth or if they're not necessarily attuned to being a landlord, a lot of them will
Yeah.
ask, well, who do you recommend for management? And so, of course, I had to set up a management company where, I had a staff of accounts payable, accounts receivable. This was all before what we now have on the internet, where everything's so not
Streamlined now.
paperless and
Yeah.
streamlined, right? And
Yeah.
so we would sell them the property, we would help the finance,
Finance it.
and
Yeah.
then we would manage it for them, and then we would say, hey, hold on to it for 2 or 3 years as it reaches this value. We're going to give you the opportunity to sell it and then exchange it into bigger and bigger. So,
Well, not only that, and then you're helping them to sell it. So you're getting the commission on that, and then you're helping them to buy something else. And so it's
yes,
very,
yeah.
yeah, smart. Very, very
And
smart.
so right around like in 2003, 2004, we were like, I myself at some point around 2004 owned 1,000 units myself because we would sell property in California, buy some property in California. Our cap rates were getting lower. And so
Mhm.
we ended up going out to other states. So I
I was
diversified.
going to ask that. Yeah. How
Yeah.
much you're still doing in California because the prices are nuts.
Well, the funny
Yeah.
thing is, so it's come full circle for me. So I sold off a lot of my properties that I moved out of state with. So like in 2002, 2003, I'm buying like 86 units in Tennessee, 350 units in Texas, 150 units in Maine, and expanding out right into these. And I'm still holding a pretty substantial several hundred units in California. But what I found in those like 25 years, and I'm dating myself here, was that the rents went up so much more in California, and as the rents went up, your equity, your value went up, right? So it
Mm.
made you a more bankable individual, especially if you're trying to expand into entrepreneurial things and set up other businesses that are complementary. And so I was fortunate to have a good wife. I got married in 2000, and she helped me, you know, uh, basically monitor and keep the human resources together to keep all the different verticals working,
Yeah.
side by side. And it was not without its, trials. I mean, you'd have a large group of people, and there's
Personalities, just people. Yeah,
personalities in the
exactly.
office.
Yeah.
But the great thing was, as you're investing in apartment buildings and you have that mindset as a regular investor, that you have the peace of mind of this regular cash flow. The funny thing is, I have clients now, and and all they do is they syndicate and they'll just go out and either use a little bit of their money and other people's money to go out and buy buildings. We help them find it and we help manage it, and they get paid for that. and it's a whole job onto its own. But back when I was doing that, I was young, and so it didn't occur to me that okay, owning a whole bunch of apartment units is a full-time job onto its own. I still have time to go to the office, work on my client stuff. And so I integrated this and kept it this way through, physical assistance at the time, right? And
Yeah.
it also helped me to understand how to delegate and how to come back to things once they were going. And then as fires would come, and I would go in and take care of just those individual things. But long story short, I mean, from 2000 to now present 2025, that was the style I had maintained, and so it was that because of that entrepreneurial like vertical integration of businesses, I was able to expand into other businesses that were not necessarily real estate related, because you had that strong foundation of an infrastructure of people that could handle things.
So what are you doing on the construction side these days, Brian?
So on the construction side, and just for the audience, I'm not the guy that swings the hammer, but as the developer, I'll hire a contractor, and in other projects that I had done on the construction side. So like in 2004, I had developed a 64 unit condo complex, 24 unit, a 20 unit, and a 14 unit townhouse project, and we sold each of these individual units off to individual buyers.
Hmm.
Just giving you that background because now these days in 2025, and these condo communities, they look just the same exact thing as an apartment complex. The only difference is that there's a single assessor's parcel on an apartment unit versus like, 50
Yeah.
parcels for a condo complex. So these days, especially in California, and having been through the ringer of like being a condo developer and getting sued in year 9.5 because attorneys will encourage people in their homeowners association to sue the developer. And
Wow.
most of the construction that I'm involved in is on ground up apartment units, right?
Hmm.
And I had started refocusing a lot of my assets back into California just because after holding multiple apartment units out of state and seeing that they were good cash flow, but there wasn't really much increase over several years, I found that in California, even though it's very difficult to develop here, the rents still tend to be a lot higher because of the types of jobs that are here, right?
Yeah.
And like, so for example, and I'll just use this as an example for contrast, like when I invested in Tennessee, in Memphis, Tennessee, for example, there were three major employers. And I remember like looking at them and looking at what each of the people were paid or their staff, so I can kind of gauge where my rents would be, right? Because that's the audience that I'm servicing. Well, in California, where I'm at in the Bay Area, you're looking at five employment centers. These are major cities that have like hundreds of employers in them,
Yeah.
and they're paying high, they have high paying jobs and things like that. Now right now you're probably seeing in the news that a lot of Californians have been leaving, but there are still a lot of high paying jobs, and the amount of available apartment units is still very scarce because it's
Hmm.
so hard to develop and get approval here. So the rents still are high just because of there's not enough supply.
Supply and demand. Yeah.
And so like the project I'm working on right now, I have a 54 unit that's under construction, and it's just market rate apartment units, very modern. And then I've got an approved
In
project
Northern California.
in Northern California. Yeah, a little
Yeah.
town called El Cerrito, which is like 5 miles outside of San Francisco. So like when
Okay.
you in El Cerrito's view is across the bay of San Francisco, right? And then there's another 29 unit that I have approved, but I'm still going through construction drawings. And again, these when I talk about these things as a developer, I'm not working on them 9 to 5. So it does give me that opportunity to continue to still, go to the office,
Oversee everything else.
oversee the
But
agents.
you're developing these to keep them yourself or to sell the project to someone else?
Great question. These I am developing to keep for myself.
Okay. Yeah.
When I first started buying apartments in 1998, they were all like 60 years old, 80 years old, right? In the Bay Area. Like these are like Victorian style homes and things like that. And you're fixing them up, you're modernizing them. As I started getting into apartments in like the 70s era or 80s era, I kind of upgraded my apartment class to like what they would call a C class or a B class unit, right?
Yeah.
And so, having built ground up new construction to sell off as condos, I wanted that since I've already had that experience, of like owning apartments that are much older and then understanding the different maintenance and upkeep, my goal was to start building new apartments to keep. And that's mainly because in California, we have rent control. And so
Yeah.
when you build new apartments, there's a 15-year sunset period where there's no rent control. And so that little window is very advantageous for me because one, when I own an apartment building, just like I did with the older buildings, I could depreciate or accelerate the depreciation. So as I'm getting the cash flow, I can use that to kind of
Right off
put in
taxes.
other things.
Yeah.
And so everyone from when I'm looking at investments, I'm looking at it from multiple standpoints and barometers for what I think is a good investment. And a big piece of that is not just the cash flow, but also what is the potential tax write-off that I might be able to use to offset that. Because it's not about what you make; it's what you actually get a chance to keep, right? So,
Yeah. Well,
so
not only that, but now you don't have to worry about
exactly.
9.5 years down the road, the condo association, somebody is suing you, right? So
Yes.
you're building it, you're owning it, you're managing it. It's full circle.
Absolutely. And if I ever wanted to take one of these newer buildings and sell them off as condos, there's nothing stopping me, in year 10 or year 11, after the 10-year statute of limitations on construction is
Ah.
over. I could always go back and condo map it, right? And so I
Hmm.
could take that single parcel and carve it up into 54 parcels or 60 parcels and then sell them off as individual condos to individual owners, set up a homeowners association. And I've had that privilege of being able to do that as my first set of developments back in 2004. And the funny thing is, it's just like managing an apartment complex. You just take your operating expense annually, but here you carve it up between the number of units
Yeah.
that you're going to be carving up into individual homeowners to determine their homeowners association due, and figuring out like, well, hey, if I'm going to sell this to at this price point to this audience, I have to be very mindful of what are their monthly payments going to be: principal, interest, taxes, insurance, plus a homeowners association due, right?
Yeah.
So these are the
Well, that's
different intricacies I'll look into when I'm looking at a development for myself or bringing partners on. Because at the end of the day, when you're the guy who's at the head of at the tip of the spear, your partners are all going to be either happy with you or upset with you, depending on how the thing goes, right?
Yeah, most definitely. Brian, this has been fascinating. If people want to connect with you and find out more about what you're up to, where should they go?
They can go to my website, www.bcre.co. And it's Baniqued Commercial Real Estate. And on there's a couple different ways to get a hold of me. There's a little consultation tab where you can fill out your name and info, and it'll be received by my assistant, and we can schedule you into a meeting on my calendar or a Zoom, right? And so I'm not that difficult to get a hold of.
Perfect. Well, Brian, thank you very much. This has been fascinating.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, take care. See you on the next one. Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now, at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.